Hello everyone, and welcome once again to the Temple Institute Parsha class. My name is Gedalia Meyer, and I'm podcasting from Ma'ale Adumim in Israel. We like to think of ourselves as having some purpose in our being here. It is almost impossible to go through life without this belief. What would be the point of everything we do otherwise? But the possibility that this isn't at all true and is really nothing more than a grand delusion harbors silently in the backs of our minds. Do we matter? What role do we play in the grand scheme of things? What effect, if any, will a given choice we have make on the future, either our own or that of others? Are we too small and insignificant in comparison to the universe, the earth, the power of life, the collective human race, the local environment around us, to have any real power to make lasting changes? Does anything we do, anything at all, really make a difference? These questions cut to the core of what it means to be a person. We want to believe that somehow what we do in our lives actually counts for something. We want this as much as we want anything. Perhaps this innate desire is what drives the belief that we do have some purpose. Perhaps also the belief itself generates its own reality, and we do matter because we believe that we matter. This argument may sound a bit too circular to satisfy many of us, but it might be the best we can do to get an answer. The Bible has forever been one of the main inspirational texts in instilling the belief that what we do matters. Each book, each story, each chapter oozes with meaning and purpose. God, of course, plays a central role in granting this layer of meaning to our lives. Without God, we would be running around in endless circles, doing nothing but trying to survive, and maybe grabbing a little pleasure to fill in the meaningless gaps. But with God, it all makes sense, even if it seems cruel and unfair at times. It is puzzling that there can be long sections of the Bible with no mention of God. Why should this be if God is the central source from which all meaning and purpose derive? Nevertheless, those omissions are there and they strike the expectant reader as glaring. Sometimes it could be a few brief verses that hardly get noticed, but God simply isn't there. This needs to be explained. This week's Parsha is called Vayishlach. That word means he's sent, in reference to Jacob sending messengers ahead of his main group of family, journeying from Mesopotamia back to the land of Canaan. He knew that he would encounter his twin brother Esav at some point in the journey. Esav was the main reason he left to begin with, after Jacob had played a deliberate role in ensuring that he and not Esav received the principal blessing from their father Isaac. Esav, who was the elder but had sold his birthright to Jacob, sought revenge against his brother. Jacob left home on the advice of his mother Rebekah, and with the confirming blessing of Isaac, to both escape Esav's wrath and to find a wife for himself among his mother's relatives. He found not one but two, the sisters Rachel and Leah. Along with their maids Bilhah and Zilpah, they became the mothers of the 12 tribes of Israel. Jacob, his wives, and their maids and their children were now on their way back. The messengers were sent to scope out what Esav was up to and to appease him in advance. The actual meeting with Esav goes without much drama. All is forgiven, and they go their separate ways. From there, Jacob settles his family near the town of Shechem. Jacob's daughter Dinah is taken as a wife by one of the local aristocracy. Jacob's sons only agree to this arrangement if the males of the town agree to become circumcised. When this unlikely condition is fulfilled, two of the brothers steal into the town and go on a killing spree, presumably to avenge their sister being taken without their approval. This incident is one of the most bizarre in the entire Torah. After this, they move south to the region of Beit El. It is there that Jacob's last son is born. This is the second son of Rachel, and she dies during the birth. With her last breath, she names him Ben-Oni, the child of my affliction, a rather strange choice of name. But Jacob changes the name to Benjamin, meaning son of right hand, or Benjamin, which is how he is now known. Rachel is buried right there on the road in the vicinity of Bethlehem. The Torah states that the monument remained until today. Right after this comes a single verse stating that Reuben, the oldest son and a child of Leah, slept with Bilhah, the maid of Rachel, who had become the mistress of Jacob. This strange incident ends without further description, other than to say that, quote, Jacob heard. The rest of the Parsha is genealogies. One unusual feature of this parsha is that other than a brief narrative of Jacob building an altar to God and a brief prayer prior to the fateful meeting with Esau, there is virtually no mention of God. In the meeting with Esau, Jacob mentions God's goodness a couple of times, and God does come up here and there in a couple of incidental verses. But by and large, God plays no real role in this parsha. All these incidents, and God hardly comes up. Even with Rachel's death, God is not mentioned. Why this is so is left unclear. The stories are told and God simply isn't there, or only appears on the side. There is one prophetic encounter that takes place right before Jacob builds that altar. This is the classic prophecy of the type we would expect to happen to these people. But it is pretty incidental to all the main stories, and all it really tells him is to build the altar when he gets to Beit El. Where was God when all this was going on? We really don't have an answer to this question. All we can do is speculate. The encounter with Esau really goes as well as it could have. Nobody dies and nobody is cursed to eternity. The rival brothers go their separate ways and seemingly are at peace with each other. The incident at Shechem is an unquestionable blemish on Jacob's family. The killing spree seems entirely uncalled for, and even Jacob himself chastises his sons for getting him involved in such brutal behavior. It appears that moves were made and irrevocable actions taken without resorting to typical biblical prophetic consultation. They just acted on their own, and this is what happened. The birth of Benjamin and the ensuing death of Rachel stand as contrasting results of the same incident. Was this a moment of celebration or a moment of tragedy? It doesn't seem like the text really points us one way or the other. The different names that Rachel and Jacob give to their son reflect this contrast. The first commemorates the tragedy, while the second celebrates the birth. Why God doesn't come to console Jacob or anything else is a bit of a mystery. The business with Reuben and Bilhah appears and vanishes within one verse. It is strange beyond anybody's expectations. Subsequent Jewish commentators have puzzled over it ever since. Some write the whole thing off as a biblical hyperbole for what was Reuben's foolish attempt to remove Jacob's bed from the tent of the now deceased Rachel and place it in the tent of his mother Leah. Whether sexual or confrontational, the incident is weird. God seems to be absent from it altogether. Perhaps this is the Bible's way of saying what happens when God isn't there. This doesn't mean that tragedy only strikes when God awareness is not there and never strikes when the people involved have their minds on God. Nothing could be further from the truth. What it does mean is that people in the Bible tend to get themselves into self-imposed turmoil when God is taken out of the picture. That Rachel died in childbirth could have happened anywhere and certainly under circumstances in which people were in the midst of prayer or some other God-aware activity. But her reaction to her impending death strikes any reader as somewhat uncharacteristic of somebody who is so revered in tradition. Why would she name her son, for whom she eagerly hoped, son of my affliction, as if blaming him for what happened? Is it perhaps because God was not on her mind? Why would the sons of Jacob go on this rash killing spree with almost no justification? Couldn't they have settled things more amicably? Granted, they wanted revenge over the fact that their sister was taken against their will, but this does seem like the classic and literal application of the term overkill. Perhaps again, it is because God was not included in the plans. They just decided and acted without any spiritual considerations or ramifications. Why would Reuben choose to do this outrageous act, which his father would obviously find out about? Whether it was a sexual act or an act of defiance is immaterial, though the first is certainly more grave than the second. But what was he trying to prove either way? Did he think that since Rachel had died, her maid was now available for whoever wanted her? Did he think that he could dictate the terms of Jacob's relationships with his remaining wives? Again, it seems that this was done without much recourse to spiritual reflection. God was not taken into the decision. Assuming there is something to all this, it implies that the Bible's take on these somewhat unseemly incidents is that this is what happened when God is taken out of the picture. We are on our own. We might make the right choices and everything goes swimmingly. There is nothing preventing this from happening, but we will have subjected ourselves to the forces of fate and the whims of human emotions. When this combination rules the roost, all bets are off as far as what might happen. There is one almost unquantifiable factor that also must be taken into account. When God is included, the act or the choice carries inherent meaning. Things matter. When God isn't taken into account, it may have grave ramifications on the future, but it loses the element of the ultimate. It's just another event in life that we either did right or wrong. Bringing God in is a way of ensuring purpose to anything. It matters. Shabbat Shalom.